blessings, family. You know, it's always an honor to be in front of you. When I first came home from prison, after being run over by the spikes of justice through the Central Park Diamond case, people used to say to me, "It's great to see you." And I said, "It's great to be seen." They had buried us alive and forgot us and forgot that we were seeds. And instead of a social death, I got the opportunity, just like my brothers, to emerge like a phoenix from the ashes. Because as they built that fire to consume us, they forgot the owner of the heat. They say man plans and God is the best of planners. And when I think about all of the things that has prepared me to assume public office, to assume leadership, I think about being broken. I think about being one of those who have been close to the pain, and in fact, in terrible pain. Someone who has paid the ultimate price, just like my mother, just like my brother and my sister, like many of you. Many of the policies that we have been under for decades, in fact. I'm not a career politician. This is my first time stepping up in the realm of politics, but not my first time stepping up for myself and for my people. I've been fighting for justice for 34 years, since I was 15 years old. I learned how to resuscitate my life. And the great message and value that I bring not only is being a champion for those of us whose voices have been turned down, being someone who understands the pain, because I've been where you are. I had an eviction notice on my door. I needed the services that I didn't know were afforded us, that I'm finding out about right now. Figuring out why is it that people are leaving Harlem in the hundreds of thousands is not painting the full picture, when we realize the reason why we're leaving is because folks are trying to figure out whether they can pay their rent or whether they can provide for their families. I know far too well how that is because I have 10 children. My wife and I, we have 7 daughters between us and 3 boys. And so it's a tremendous opportunity, in fact, it's a dream, to share my lived experiences as I run for this seat. Because this is not a seat that has Yusef Salaam's name on it. This is a seat that represents Harlem. This is a seat where we need righteous actors to stand up and be counted in the same way that the legends who lived here before did right by us. Somewhere along the lines, we've been divested of. It didn't happen yesterday. It didn't happen a year ago. We've been divested of for decades. And I'm so honored to have a different viewpoint, a different mind, different eyes to be able to put my thoughts and ideas along with the best and brightest from our community in my campaign and as I run for this office. Vote me number 1 because you deserve it. I'm old enough to do something about the conditions in my community, and I'm young enough to seek counsel from the great elders that are still here. Thank you.
Welcome to the Gilchrist experience. This is a touching and profound moment for all of us to see a young man, and we're going back to 1989, all right? He said 34 years ago, when he was 15. Now we have his mother on Zoom, and Shalom, what do you think? Seeing your son 34 years later, after the struggle of the Central Park Five.
Well, it's different when you see him now, because now you really see him as a grown man, an individual that's able to, you know, take care of things and move forward with his life. So it's like a whole different type of experience than it was when he was just 15 and needed protection from myself and his family and the community and the police and the DA and the judges. He needed their protection. And I look at all the things that we have endured, and I must say that it's only through God's grace that he has been able to hold on to his sanity, hold on to his way of being that makes him whole in his life and makes him ready to move forward with the next stage of his life. And that stage being to represent this community in a way that it probably has never been represented before. And I look forward to that experience wholeheartedly.
Now, you and I have done, I don't know how many shows together, when you were working with People United for Children.
That's correct.
We were fighting ACS back in those days. That goes back
That's
30
correct.
years. So,
I've been fighting a long time.
well, you've seen the struggle here in New York. Now, we have a young lady next to you, Jacqueline Griffin. She's going through an ordeal today. Not similar to yours, but the persecution in the prisons, which we're all interested in. This is in Houston, Texas, the Mississippi of the 21st century, Texas. So we'd like to introduce her and give her a, how do you explain your story, Jacqueline? Because we don't have the roll-ins that I normally have the last show we did. So give us your story before we go back to Sharon. Are you there? Graham?
Jacqueline? Did we lose the connection?
Look, run the second roll in and then maybe we can figure out what's happening. All right? We're going to go back to Sharon.
Audience. So the first is for you, Dr. Salam. The question is, you are called Dr. Salam. Did you receive a doctorate degree from any educational institution, and if so, which one?
Everybody knows that I'm not a doctor from an educational community or anything like that. All throughout my bio, people know that not only did I get an honorary doctorate, because they said that I've been doing the work. They looked at how we were moving in society and said, we want to honor you and give you an honorary doctorate degree. So I didn't get my doctorate by going to school. I went to jail. For 7 years, I worked on myself. And for the rest of the time, even now, even right now, people ask me, what do you consider yourself? A caretaker of people's souls. Because when I tell you that we need righteous actors in all levels of government, in all of the things that we do, to get stuck with the mistake of thinking that I got a doctorate by going to school when I went to the school of hard knocks is a travesty. And I'm going to say this too. I did receive a Lifetime Achievement Award from President Barack Obama.
Thank you.
So, Sharon, see, we got another part of Yusuf. I'm sorry I didn't put more in there. So what do you think, Sharon? Again, we're talking about Yusuf running for councilman. That was quite a
Well,
day.
I think that it is a marvelous time for Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
As the mother of Yusef Salam, you know? And I just look forward so much to the different things that he is going to do and attempt to do to right this ship that we're on. Harlem needs a lot of assistance. We've been in a space for over 30 years and we're not moving forward in a way that it funnels down to the people in our communities. And we need our people to feel that they are getting the type of services and that they need, so that they'll feel that people are doing various things for them that are helping them on the grassroots level. People feel that the ones up above are getting help, but it's not coming down. And the housing in our community is so high that most people can hardly afford to live here. We're being pushed out, and that's what you hear them say. We're being pushed out. And the words that many people are saying, that they say we are leaving Harlem. We're not leaving Harlem. We're being pushed out of Harlem, because for a studio apartment, some of them are as high as $3,000 or more, just for a studio apartment, one-bedroom apartment. So you look at the median income of the families in Harlem, and many of our families are still on the margins of the $30,000, $40,000 income. But the people who are coming in, their median income is much higher. So they might be at the 75-point income, 80-point income. Our incomes are sandwiched with communities that have more wealth than the people who live in this community. And it makes it seem as all of us are flourishing, which is really not true. We need a change in Harlem. We need new blood, new leadership, new way of thinking, new types of problem solving. And this young man, Yusef Salam, even though he is my son, and I must say I did vote for him, and I encourage others to vote for him as well. But I also say, if you are satisfied with how things are going on in your life, if you're satisfied with what's happening in Harlem,
Yes.
continue to vote the way you're voting. If you're not satisfied, then vote for change. Vote for the change man. That man is Yusef Salam. Right now, we have more rats in Harlem than we have ever had. But one of the things also we have is construction that we have ever had. And that affects the living of these rats, because when you're digging up their homes, they have nowhere to go but in the garbage cans and on the streets where you live, because they're looking for other places too. We're fighting squirrels, we're fighting different types of things just for survival. We need something new. We need a new vision. And that vision is Yusef Salam.
Amen.
I wish I put more items on to show people the past and the stuff that we've done in the past. Gentlemen, what do you think about this approach in Harlem? A calling of a child being rise out of the phoenix, coming out of the ashes, but with a mother. That's really his fortune comes from his mother.
Well, you know, the Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go. And when they're old, they will not depart from it. So in spite of everything that has happened to Yusef and Sharon, they have maintained the righteous path. And there's a reward in that. Harlem needs somebody like Yusef, because Harlem has never, well, let me say this. Since Adam Clayton Powell, there hasn't been an advocate for Harlem anything like Adam Clayton Powell. And when when Bill Clinton left the White House, he came to Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
And when he did that, and he was invited here, that was the beginning of the end of Harlem as we knew it. Because they brought in development projects. And they paved 125th Street. They brought in businesses.
Well,
You know, we had people that had businesses, and overnight their rent went to $5,000 a month, and had to go.
Well, you'll get
know?
a lot of argument from people in Harlem about what caused that.
Well,
And it wasn't just Bill Clinton.
in
It was our
addition,
own people here in Harlem.
you have
Like
you
I
have
say,
people-
you don't live in Harlem.
I don't live in I don't live in Mississippi. I don't live in Alaska. I don't live a lot of places.
But I know something about Harlem.
But I know a brother
And I
that has
know
a house.
it wasn't just
If
Bill
you will
Clinton.
not interrupt me and let me finish my statement, thank you.
Well, when you're wrong, I
All right?
speak up.
You can respond to me.
Okay.
Don't interrupt me.
What?
There's a brother I know on 126th
It's the Gilchrist
Street.
experience, remember?
There's a brother on 126th Street. You're not funny.
I am.
You're not funny. He owns a two-family brownstone.
Mm-hmm.
His taxes are as high as a 10-unit building that they built across the street. And they have a tax abatement where they don't pay taxes for 10 years, and his taxes went up to the point that he can't even retire and enjoy his home in retirement because the city raised the taxes because of a new development that they put across the street.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have comparables in Harlem or any other neighborhood, this is another way they're forcing black people out of their properties. They're raising the taxes so that you can't pay them. And as a result, you lose your property.
Mm-hmm.
And people that have never struggled through the struggle of Harlem, they weren't living here when the streets were broken down. They wouldn't even set foot in Harlem. But now the people that have struggled and made it through over the last 40, 50 years, they're being told, you gotta go. The same thing is happening in Brooklyn. Then you have people stealing deeds from people. That's another thing that has to be addressed. This deed
Yeah.
theft, and you got these LLCs with people hidden behind them, and they're buying information, and I know it for a fact, in Brooklyn, there are people buying information on pieces of property and then coming and soliciting people to buy their properties at low pricing, but the people don't know the value of their property.
Okay.
Or people will pay the taxes on a property, and you don't even know your taxes have been paid. And then they're suing you to get the money back. All of this nonsense has to stop. And the people doing it don't live in Harlem, don't look like the people in Harlem, but this is the way, and it's called a land grab. Black people will run out of their properties in the South by the Klan and other Jim Crow activities. This is Jim Crow in the 21st century.
And that happened before Bill Clinton got to Harlem.
Well, let me interject here that in light of what is just said, Sister Sharon, what are some of the main planks or points that Yusuf is running on outside of vote for me?
Well, he is running on housing in terms of he wants to make housing affordable to people who live in Harlem, because right now we're in a moment of gentrification, and he wants a leveling of that field so that people can stay in their homes. He wants educational progress happening for the families and children in Harlem, because he feels that the education is not what it should be for people to survive and move forward and be able to be productive in his life. Now, he has also mentioned that he's very much interested in health issues, because we have a health disparity here in Harlem. There's the health system is not what it should be. We have a mental health disparity in Harlem. And one of the things, going back to the issue of housing, he says that monies should be appropriated, because there are a lot of funds that are not being spent, that are on the table, that can assist in solving the housing issues in Harlem. We have a lot of people in Harlem who have lived in Harlem for decades who are poor and have no place to stay. Right now, we're in the process of accepting and locating people who are immigrants into our community, and we're finding places for them to stay. We need that same energy, he says, that same energy propelled so that the Harlemites can get places to stay as well. There are a lot of properties that are city-owned that are derelict today. And by derelict, I mean that they are empty. Some of the people can live in these spaces just like many of the immigrants are taking in and put in spaces that are empty today. You know, we have to look at things and have like a fairness in how we move to solve the problems that are affecting us. We want, and he wants, people to come in this community. He's accepting of people who are coming into this community, all kinds of people, really. And he understands that the immigrants should have a place once they come, because this is an immigrant country, I would understand, with the exception of the Native Americans.
Well, you see what happens with the immigration. People from immigration come to this country and look at it and see all the opportunities that are available, and only the most aggressive people from their countries get here. So we that are born here and suffered and for the 400 years of slavery and the fighting that we had to do to get them the ability to come here, you know, and they bring immigrants here that are well prepared to take advantage of all the luxuries of America. And then yet we're not given anything to pull our bootstraps up, pull ourselves up by our bootstrap, because we've been taught to have an inferior mind, to say that the white supremacists have taught us that we're lower than low. But look at a black immigrant that comes here from America. Go ahead, Leroy.
Well,
how does white supremacy fit into this?
What our brother has touched on in terms of tax abatements, in terms of the strategic use of Bill Clinton, former President Bill Clinton, placing him here in Harlem, and my Negro cousins out there in the street, 125th Street, cheering the fact that he came in. But they did not know and realize that his placement on 125th Street drove up the prices or gave additional value to the real estate. It was a false thing, because prior to Clinton coming in, they had this charade that Clinton, that landlords down Wall Street, etc., didn't want him there. I remember that.
Okay.
And he had no recourse but to come to the arms of his black brothers and sisters in Harlem. And what happened after that, we don't see unless you peek behind the curtain. And this is why it's so critical that a brother like Yusuf is running, because there's a number of things that he can do, and at the same time there are a number of things that are arrayed against him to be successful. And these things are unseen by the average person. For example, if you look at Harlem 125th Street and think that Harlem is between 110th Street and 155th Street, we're sadly mistaken.
Okay.
The boundary lines of Harlem runs all the way up to 242nd Street.
Years ago,
now, that's
not today.
That happened with Negro leadership in place in Harlem, and I didn't know this until I researched the map.
Well, back in the day when they brought Clinton up here, wasn't Charlie Rangel accused of gentrifying Harlem, bringing in Magic Johnson on 125th Street, and then Bill Clinton down the street?
Magic
it was
Johnson
not
worked
Magic
with
Johnson. they were
The
blaming
bank.
that on these people, not just Bill Clinton.
The bank, well, the bank that Magic was working with,
Yeah.
I think it was the NatWest, or that bank doesn't even exist anymore.
Is that right?
Oh, okay.
And they were doing mortgage
Oh,
loans
okay.
and things of that nature. Then the theater came, all right?
Yeah.
Alambe Brath lost his place, because he told me his rent went up to $5,000
It was part of that.
from in one moment. So the thing is that gentrification means that you need to get out of here. That's what it means, because they're not going to pave the streets, redo the sidewalks, and let the people that were here stay here, because supposedly property value goes up. And the thing is, because a white man came, property value was supposed to go up. It's nonsense. The fact is that you had Pathmark was on 125th
Yeah,
and
what
Lexington. You had an alleged black Cadillac dealership, which was fronted by a black guy. That was a scam. All right. All these
Lennox
businesses were
Avenue,
coming
right?
in. Right. We didn't need Mickey Mouse and a lot of these people showing up. And
But who brought
all the
these
street
people to it?
vendors were forced off 125th Street.
But wasn't Charles Rangel accused of bringing all these people up to Harlem?
Charlie invited Clinton because Clinton couldn't go back home to Arkansas. And we know why he couldn't go back to Arkansas. Every president in history has returned to his home to set up his library or whatever it is. He could not go back because he was brought up on criminal charges. He lost his law license and he couldn't go back to Arkansas. And there's more behind that in his connections with Daddy Bush, the Sandinistas, and all of that stuff with the cocaine movement, which turned out to be our
Haiti
crack
and the
epidemic.
rice plantations.
And that is not make-believe. There are books written on that,
And a movie.
and a movie.
Air America.
But you got to read the book, Compromise, Clinton, Bush, and the CIA. And you'll get an understanding of why black people are strung out on drugs, especially on crack cocaine.
Well, us selling drugs to each other and fighting over the money. That started in the West Coast. We've got a lot to blame on ourselves, too, how we fight amongst each other. You can't blame everything on the white man.
No,
You know,
We're not
it's
blaming
not-
everything
it's
on the
not-
white man. I'm
it's,
just
you know,
talking about the
a lot of
drugs
people
don't
do.
come here
I'm
from
not
black
talking
people.
about you. I'm
It's-
talking
it's
about
not-
people blaming things on the white man.
Brother Winston,
And we have to take
It's-
care of some of ourselves ourselves.
it's not blaming the white man. It's not blaming. When you point, who gerrymandered the district all the way up to 242nd Street? I mean,
The
Who-
system.
who?
The system.
The system.
The system that's in place are the people, the swamp that hides in HPD, and they facilitate. There's a swamp, I'm using Trump's term, there's a swamp inside HPD that keeps the game in certain hands. And you'll go for a brownstone back in the day. If you had a brownstone, you wanted 2 or 3 more, and you go for that particular property. It's been taken off the list. Who took it off the list? The system. And I'm just learning about it.
Well, it's
What I-
always been there. The redlining that's happened in Harlem.
That's a
and
federal government program. That's
Of
not even the
course.
banks. That was the federal government
right.
at the close of World War II.
That's the white man,
No,
okay?
That's
Or-
the federal
The federal
government.
Or the system.
It's not the
red
banks, it's
line.
the federal
Red
government.
lining.
That was their program.
We've
It-
always been targeted here in Harlem. Well, what happened to us when we were segregated and did things on our own? My family owned a business for themselves in the 40s. We did quite well. You know, and when we were all black, and Harlem was great. I mean, I remember 125th Street in the 40s. I was born 3 blocks from the Apollo Theater. I mean, they had a white Santa Claus in Bloomstein. You remember those days? And it was a joke to us.
And I wanted to sit on his lap when I went to 125. But there's now, those of us who have a little age on us can look back
Yeah.
at that time, but there are those of us who don't know how thriving black businesses were in Harlem or Bed-Stuy or the Bronx, etc. They don't know that their frame of reference is the present.
That's right. The brainwashing that occurred, Leroy and I are old enough that we're both 82 years old. I mean, bring it out. And things changed when they brought
But
Crack-
not forgetting
crack
Sister
to
Sharon.
Harlem was planned genocide.
Amen.
Plain and simple. That's Sandinistas and the system making money off us selling and killing each other. But I just relate to that, saying that why were we killing each other? Because we didn't have our businesses anymore. We were brainwashed to think and call ourselves nigger. And because we came through a different era where we were kings and queens. I mean, we were clean back in the 50s when we had Eisenhower as president. There was pride in the government, in the white man, in the system. And people, the integrity of the government changed. So we changed with it. What
Well,
say ye?
Well, going back to Sister
Graham's 11 years, 8 years younger. And there's a change there between Graham and us.
This government is what it's always been. It's just that through technology, you are now finding out more and more and more. And the skin of the onion has been peeled back. And it's been peeled back. You see, truth crushed to ashes will rise. All right? All the lies have been peeled back in this country.
And they're still
Right.
being peeled back.
You have a dude in Florida that doesn't want people to read certain books. He doesn't. We were talking
Yeah.
about this off air. The people living in the South don't get the information that we get here. They don't see the same television programs that we see here because they want to keep them in a restricted space.
It's always been like that.
Right. So there
It
ain't
should-
no change.
there
There
used
was
to be a
always
difference
there was
between-
always a program.
There used to be a difference
restrict
between
us.
Harlem and Brooklyn. You know?
The people in Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy, people bought their homes. There was a time when you couldn't
yeah,
live in
right.
Bed-Stuy, but in the 60s, black people bought brownstones for $16,000 in Bed-Stuy.
And Bed-Stuy.
That's right. That's what they were paying.
In the
16,000
60s. In the 60s. Okay.
All right. Most of the properties in Harlem, there are many properties in Harlem that are still white-owned. And
Yeah.
the thing is that the gentrification
you-
in Brooklyn was
you-
slower than the gentrification in Harlem because
See-
you had more black ownership
See,
in Brooklyn.
See, we were talking about generation wealth, how people in Harlem weren't educated to the point that we bought homes. We were conditioned to living in apartments. We didn't come from the Caribbean flavor of owning your own home. Like a Caribbean comes to New York and say, how can you live on top of each other?
Yeah.
So you're conditioned to the system here. Here, Leroy and I came up in the 50s where you stayed, you had your three-piece suit and you yearned to go downtown and get a corporate job.
Amen.
We were brainwashed by the system. But we were the best at what we did because we had the music and all the white people wanted to be black
and still do.
and still do.
But
They
you-
can play that game, but they can still go
It's
back
not a
and
game,
be
it's
who
their
they
brainwashing.
can play. They can act like they want to be black, but they can still go back to Uncle Mike or Daddy and do the corporate structure. They
You-
can run around and demonstrate, but when they don't want to do
Look,
that
they-
anymore, they have a place to go to make their money and handle finance.
We have to understand as a race of people, they're afraid of us because we can do everything better than they can, given the opportunity to do it. Now, we have proven ourselves whenever they said we couldn't do it. Now, I was brainwashed to the point. You told me what I couldn't do, and that's exactly what I went and did. They told me where I couldn't go, and I got clean enough that I was presentable enough, and I played their game better than they could.
well,
What
this,
I'm saying is we've got the Constitution of America, and if we use our vote, everybody wants to vote. And what happened, how we get Trump? Hating on Hillary Clinton. There's a Clinton hating
You
got us
let me
Trump.
tell you something. Don't worry about me hating Hillary.
I'm talking about not just you.
It's not, I had nothing to
Leroy
do-
was right next to you.
Yeah,
we
listen.
I've got shows I can play back where you
I
guys
have no
hated
problem
Hillary
talking
so
about
much.
Hillary Clinton.
I'm not-
Because
I'm talking
her
about something
mentor was
else.
a Klansman,
I'm talking
the
about-
Grand Cyclops of the Ku Klux
That's what I'm
Klan.
talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. So there's no difference
But
between.
she was better than Trump.
And as I said before, black people need to stop picking in the garbage pail. You're always picking the lesser of two evils. That's
Well,
all you get.
see,
so understand the
That
system.
attitude, there you go.
The lesser,
You
and
proved my point right there.
the point is, Hillary Clinton
Leroy,
got
make a
caught
comment.
cheating, prepping for the debate.
Had a whole
They caught her
operation.
You see
and
what
that
we argue
young
about?
lady in Florida, and those are the facts. That's not a theory.
This is what
those
black
are the facts.
people argue about.
So if you're gonna put a game out that's correct and straight, and don't get caught in the middle of your game while you're going up against a demagogue.
And what do we get? Trump.
That's what you got.
Well, we're
See,
talking-
you're
What you
happy
got?
with that.
Wait,
Don't
You're
put words
happy
in
with
my
it.
mouth. You can't speak for me.
That's what you
You
just
can't tell
spoke for
me
yourself.
I'm happy about that.
Wait a
Winston.
Well, you just
You're
said
talking
that's what you got.
Stupidness.
listen,
See what
we're
I
dealing
mean?
with Yusuf running for councilman,
That's right.
council person. That's what they say today.
And we just give you an
Right. So,
attitude of
Sister
what
Sharon,
happens in a black
Let's
conversation.
say that Yusuf wins. What are some of the immediate things that you would like to see him do?
And it not being the vote of the two evils.
Maybe she didn't. Hopefully.
Shalon?
Well, I think I would like to see him do a number of things. I probably would like to see him see if there was a possibility to include civic education somewhere in the lives of our children, so that people start understanding a little bit about, a little more about how government works, how they can go into a store and look at the return policy, just basic stuff that used to be taught years ago. Just bring that back to the table. And I think that I would like to see certain types of things addressed in terms of people moving around and the police situation. I'd like to see that addressed in some way. If all this stuff is not easy. Some of the stuff is easier than others, but part of what Yusuf is doing is he's trying to instigate like a people's campaign. So with the people's campaign and people involvement, he probably would reach out to the people to see what types of things they would be interested in him doing right away. Not necessarily me, but the people who put him in his office. And we are hoping that the people do that. Put him in office so that he can start responding to their needs. So as we move forward, if I look at 125th Street, and there was a spot on 125th Street called the March. And it's been empty for many, many years. Now that spot is supposed to be a building that's supposed to go back to the people. Now, I'm hoping that that's what happens, because there were people who had businesses within that spot.
That's correct.
But it's stayed empty so long, I'm wondering if the majority of the people who had business within that spot and the commitment to turn it back over to the people is still part of a reality in the climate that we're living in today. A lot of people who had businesses, the mom and pop stores, were pushed out of Harlem through redistricting and all of that type of thing. And it's like, we have lost a lot. And when you look at the various things that we've lost, and you realize that at one point, we used to live all the way downtown. We've been pushed up, 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 up. We were pushed up to Harlem. Now we're here, and we made life as best we can here in Harlem, and now we're being pushed further up because a lot of people, when you talk about gentrification, the people who are moving in because they can't afford downtown. It's cheaper to live in Harlem, even though for many of us,
That's
the
what
rents
it is.
are exceedingly high. For them, it's much cheaper just to come here and live in here, because I know in where I'm living now, there's a family that lives next to me, and there's an Asian that's there, there's a white person that's there, and there's an African American person that's living in a 3-bedroom apartment. And I'm assuming that they're living there because they're sharing the rent. One of them alone can't handle it.
That's right.
So, you know, they're affected and squashed into this situation as well. And the point is, how can we get out of it? One thing that Yusuf has said on many occasions is that people in Harlem are paying taxes, but we don't get the benefit of the taxes that we pay. Other people are benefiting more from our tax revenue that we pay. And when you realize that everybody pays some kind of tax, even people who are on public assistance pay taxes for some of their needs as well. So it's not like there's a group of people that has a whole tax-free borderline that's living here, that's supporting this economy. You know, we have to rethink how things are done, and he's right there. We have to rethink it. We have to reshape it so that it makes sense and it works for us in our community.
What I want to encourage us as a people is to vote. I don't want people to think that their vote doesn't count, because their vote does count. When you discourage people to think that everything's against them, that there's no hope, and that, I mean, our kids are calling each other names and demeaning each other, and we can't do anything because the system is against us, or the white man hates us, or they're always trying to keep us down. When if you're down and cause to be down, it's up to you to get up, no matter what the challenge is. The challenges are coming even deep and heavy. And the result of Trump, the backlash of Obama being president, we didn't give Obama enough credit. We should have taken advantage of the best choice that we had. I thought that was a blessing from God. But yet we had us talking about Obama. I remember somebody telling me that, I know it's a crazy story, but one of our famous people, Phil Valentine, was saying Malcolm was Obama's daddy, and passing this around in the black community.
That was.
I mean, I went to the meeting, and I had Phil on my show at least a dozen times. But I turned him when he put out this misinformation about Malcolm being Obama's daddy.
I call those viruses with something is coming from somewhere, you don't know where it's coming from.
But it was coming from a brilliant mind, supposedly.
Well, it came from a person who's held up to be brilliant, and that's the value of putting a lie in something that can carry it when you can't. I mean, the thing is just a distraction. But your point about your vote counting is real. It's real at the local level.
Yeah.
And you can win an election with 2,000 people if you go and mobilize them. And fortunately, there's a Gilchrist experience where people, I run into them on the street, 125th Street all the time. They're mature people who see the Gilchrist experience. And they say, where's that guy with the dreads? When's he coming back? Meaning,
Graham,
brother here.
they're always asking about
Yeah.
him.
So, I mean
The guy who welcomed Trump.
Stop lying.
the guy,
And I'm going to tell you to your face, you're a liar. Now, go ahead, brother.
the Trump.
Yes.
Hold your virus. Hold your virus. Don't
Amen,
put your,
amen,
you're a
amen.
liar.
Leroy's right there with you. I blame
you're a
Leroy
liar.
too.
You're a liar.
Wait a
I'm not
minute.
I
gonna say
blame you
misspoke.
and Leroy.
say-
You are a liar.
we say
The
other
truth
than-
is
Because
the
y'all hated Hillary so much.
I'm getting back to Yusuf.
Don't ask me to lick poison.
We-
Hers or his. It's not happening.
On the serious, and everything said here is serious, because many a joke is true and to the point. But the matter of dealing with our people in Harlem and in Bed-Stuy and in the Bronx, and dealing with them and mobilizing our young people, and Yusuf is the possible individual at this point in time, right now, who can give life to a people, to a generation that's not involved.
I always said the God in me loves the God in you, and I see that in
Yes.
Yusuf. Yusuf at 1 Corinthians last Sunday, all praises. And I was right there. That was my son too. You know, that was my brother. Because he came up with your, he's the only reason he survived is you. You're the one, you're the human God. I mean, you produce these humans. And look what you've done. Under all that
Yes.
turmoil and all that pressure. And I was right there with you. We did, how many shows did we do on ACS? And you were struggling, you were fighting for every kid on the block.
It was quite a few. But getting back to the point of voting, what
Yeah.
people don't see in voting, it's like voting gives you the power
Mm-hmm.
you need to make change. If you don't vote, then you lose that power, and other communities who are voting gain the power you don't have. Because voting is so important that people make decisions about you because of whether or not you're voting, or whether, you know, if you do vote, if you don't vote, you get more money, you get more this, you get more that, you get more garbage collection. Right now, we have people here who go around with the garbage people, and they collect the garbage cans from us, and they drop just sometimes, you'll see just as much trash left on the street as you see them pick up. You don't see that downtown. And the
Yeah,
reason you don't see it is because those people vote.
that's right.
We have a way to, and a mechanism that's set up to change things. But they want us to feel that we are powerless.
Right.
And as long as we fall victim to those feelings that we can't make a change, then we don't do anything. It's almost like the census. When they say to people, you make people think that they're going to use the census to track down illegal people, so that people who are here are afraid to get on the
Right,
census.
right,
We
right,
have to pay
right.
for those people who are here.
That's
We
right.
have to pay their medical. We have
That's
to pay
right.
for them to eat, all that kind of stuff we pay for. We need people to be counted.
Right.
It makes a difference in our services.
That's
It makes a difference in the number of buses and trains that are coming up and down the
That's right.
street. It makes a difference in our communities. And for us to move forward, we have to move forward with a different vision of who we are.
That's right.
And know
That's
that we are part of the change machine
That's
that
right.
can make it happen. And the only way we have to do that is through participating
That's
in
right.
making the change
That's
work.
amen.
And
Amen.
that's voting. I already voted. And I voted for the change man.
That's right.
And that man is Yusuf Salaam.
That's
All
right.
right.
Amen.
And I want to encourage everybody to vote. And
That's
I want
it.
you to vote for Yusuf Salaam. I truly do. I'm his
That's
mother.
it.
But I want you to vote no matter who you vote for.
Right.
But please consider voting number one for Yusuf Salaam.
And
But
mind you,
vote. Let them
you,
know you're alive. That's how they know you're here. Let them know you are alive. Vote.
that's it. And mind you, Alan Taylor and Inez Dickens stay into the state senate. They don't lose their seats. So we need Shalom in the city council and the two people running against them in the state senate. That makes
in the
sense.
assembly, yes.
That makes sense. So vote for Youssef. Don't look and think about if you ran from the census, you cost yourself money hiding from somebody. Nobody's looking for you. We need you to come out and show your face. And people are afraid to answer the census. Somebody's looking for me. No, that's private. That doesn't go anywhere. That doesn't go to your credit union. Or they can't find you through the census. And how many people run and think it's, oh, I ain't gonna do nothing for the system? And that's how we fail. We fail ourselves thinking we're being slick. So we out-slick ourselves. And that's exactly why we're in the situation where somebody, I hate to bring it up, Graham, but
Bring it up.
not caring enough to think of voting for the worst of the two. That's been a history of voting, period. The better of two evils. That's what we've always been up against. It's never been any different. and
You know-
and
Go ahead.
and Hillary and Trump was a plain the best of both, best of two evils. If he had, who's the FBI agent, the leader?
Comey?
If Comey had have brought out his investigation of Trump and of Hillary at the same time, Hillary would have won.
You don't
True.
vote for president. You know that. The Electoral College votes for the presidency. The
Graham,
vote, excuse me, the vote that you cast for mayor, governor, dog catcher, that's a vote. The Constitution of the United States and the people that set this country up, forget about black people, they had no intentions of even low-class white people voting. This is not a democracy.
Or women.
And never was a democracy.
or women voting,
Precisely. That's why the Electoral College was set up.
all right?
Because you've had presidents who didn't have the popular vote, but still won through the Electoral College. That's where the critical thing is. The problem with the presidential elections is it's not a democratic process. Number two, the electors could vote for anybody they wanted to vote for. They didn't have to vote the populace. So
Okay.
that's where that vote is. You don't vote, and you never have elected a president, you never will, because this is not a democracy. This is a republic.
So is that a reason not to vote?
I didn't say don't vote. You said that. You said that I said that. I never said that.
I didn't say anything
I
about you
said
not voting.
You have never elected a president, and you never
Well,
will.
how did we get Obama?
He
we
got
voted.
the Electoral College. That's how you got Obama.
So to
That's
get
the
to
only way.
Electoral College,
It's
you
not
vote.
the popular vote.
I
It is
don't-
what the electors, who are your electors in Congress representing your community?
That's a system that we're dealing with.
That is the
Graham.
only system.
That's a system we're dealing with. You
Right.
still get Electoral College by voting.
Who are your electors?
That's no excuse not to vote,
I-
because it's not through the Electoral
Do
College.
you know it is the Electoral College?
Well, how do you
against them.
get to win?
Because they're not changing the structure. Because the founding fathers said you're too damn stupid to pick this kind of leadership. That's
So-
what they said.
So what do we do with that?
So the only time you're really voting
How
is
does
when
that
you
change
vote
anything?
for anything other
Knowing
than president.
all that, does that change things?
If you can run the system, you can change it.
Well, you got to vote to change
people,
the system.
The people, look at what's going on right now. Look at what's going
How
on
about
right
something
now
positive about
with
what's
all
happening?
of the nonsense. The senators and the congressmen, they're getting paid. They're not even working. They're not even doing anything.
So how do we change
They're
that?
not doing any legislation. All
How do
right?
we change that?
And everybody's just watching the news every day, and it's the same old nonsense. People I know from overseas are calling me, what is going on with the people running your country? It's a good question. We have inept people running this country. You look at these hucksters, this knucklehead that never puts a jacket on, has his sleeves rolled up. He wants to run some investigation.
Jim Jordan.
Jordan and all these other people.
Biggest ass.
But who put them in
no.
office? The very people that they represent. They put them in office. So
We outnumber
you're dealing
them.
with the gross. This
We
is why they didn't
outnumber them.
want non-property
Well,
owners
let's
voting.
get back to the
because
local.
stupid people put stupid
Let's
people
talk
in
about
office.
the local stuff we're talking about now. If black
Is
people
Jacqueline still
voted
there?
in Harlem If black people vote in Harlem, Youssef wins.
You vote because that's an election. That's an election. The presidential election is not an election.
So
it's
that
not
means
one
we
man,
don't
one
vote for election?
This is, oh, for God's sake.
Well, you bring up all the negatives, what are you saying?
I said this is one man, one vote. The presidential election is not one man, one vote.
If enough of us will vote, we can change it all. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
I want, Winston, get a civics book.
To change anything, you have to have people in place that are going to work for that change.
Right.
That's
You know
it.
what I'm saying?
The
So if
electors
you're
are
not
those
voting
people.
for the people who are working for the change, then you get the same result.
That's it.
why.
You're still voting.
I've said it many times,
Your
Youssef has
electors
said.
vote.
if you
Encourage
like
voting.
what you're getting, vote the same way you've been doing it.
That's
If you
all.
want something to change, then you gotta vote for something different.
That's it. But you gotta vote.
Nobody said you don't vote. I'm
Yeah.
telling you that
Well, what do
your
you-
vote.
You,
He's not
Winston,
saying don't vote, he's
pick
saying
up a
vote.
book and study government in this country.
I'll just study you, and I can learn all
you
sorts
need
of
to
government.
understand that electors
Why are you
pick the
saying
president
that? Why are you
because that's
saying
what
that?
it is.
You just,
Now,
I'm encouraging people to vote.
I'm not
I
discouraging
don't need your
people from
civics
voting.
lessons.
Just-
I don't understand you, man.
what has been agreed upon with the back and forth is vote.
That's it.
That's what's, now the other things, non-agreed on, just put those off to the side. And Sister Sharon Salam gave us some marching orders
That's it.
and some hope that this brother can galvanize a lot of young brothers and sisters who in turn can learn the leadership opportunities within the community, wherever they may go. Whether it's the Bronx, whether they leave New York, whatever.
And the God in me loves the God in you, and stay tuned for more information about vote. No matter what you think the system is,
Local
the only way to
elections are
change.
real.
I'm talking.
This is the Gilchrist experience.
That's right.
Local elections.
When
are